Hello there, Crazy Talks with Wise People. We're back again with another guest that will astound you. He is a European Asian golden blend, as you can see him. He's married to a British, but he is Malaysian. Um, According to him, based on our conversations, he studied in that beautiful island of Brunei. He studied there during his elementary school, but he studied in many other um, premier universities after that schooling in Brunei. Um, he um, he lives in both worlds, in Malaysia and in England. If you listen to him, his especially his values. His values are blends of two worlds, and you will be astounded to find out how he's able to fuse these two values into a beautiful tapestry of a culture that we must all evolve into. He is an international keynote and take note, TEDx speaker. And he said he's a humanitarian evangelist. Let's find out what this is from our very important guest for today, which you'll be learning a lot, a lot. So, don't move, okay? Keep watching because you'll be learning a lot. And his principles are really sound and it will make your life better if you will listen to him and apply some of the principles that he might be able to mention today. Again, he is TEDx speaker, international keynote speaker, and a humanitarian evangelist, a good blend of Asia and Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, we are so pleased and honored to have Terry Gani with us. Terry, thank you. We're so honored. Look at his biodata. He submitted a very, very, very long biodata, which I cannot read. I told him if I'm going to read everything, it's going to take me 2 days. So let's allow him to greet you. And first of all, I'd like to ask him about, I'm quite intrigued about this humanitarian evangelism. What is this, Danny? Okay, go ahead, please.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. Yes, a lot of people ask me that question. They're like, what is a humanitarian evangelist? Well, unfortunately, humanity has been battered over the years more and
Mm-hmm.
more. And,
Mm-hmm.
you get all kinds of leaders coming out, both corporate leaders and political leaders who are doing things and saying things, things like empathy is the end of civilization, stuff like that. And I
Mm-hmm.
realized that these people are hammering humanity to a pulp, and leaders destroying other countries, other people. And I said, there must be some light in all this darkness. And I realized that, hang on, if you really peel away, leaders across the world are doing one simple thing that they've been doing for centuries, which is
Mm-hmm.
divide and conquer.
Yeah,
And
divide
I
and
said,
conquer. Uh-huh.
exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's time that we raise the level of humanity to a point where people recognize that humanity is still there, still very much alive,
Mm-hmm.
um, and move the narrative back to the fact that humans are still wonderful human beings. They're not
Mm-hmm.
as evil and horrible as the media makes them out to be.
Mm-hmm.
And because we understand that the media um, work on an algorithm that
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
know that people love negative news,
Mm-hmm.
that human beings are trained to look for things that are dangerous, negative.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what moves the needle for
Yeah.
algorithms. And
Mm.
that's why, they want to push more negative news in
Right.
all media all the
Mm.
time.
Yeah, it's true. But well, I think I've told you already. I've made mention that in our organization, at UK School for Transformational Leadership. We are redefining broadcasting. All good news, all good news is news. All good news is news.
Absolutely.
As simple as, for me, as simple as seeing a firstborn lamb in spring is news. It's beautiful. Seeing the trees go back to life is news, you know? Um, there's so much that we're missing because we are too materialistic nowadays. Like especially mass media. But we're not into that today. But thank you for sharing with us about your principle and humanistic evangelism. Thank you. Well, obviously, I've already made mention that you're a blend of Asian European, and it astounded me. It impressed me when you were talking to me last week about your core values, the guide to your leadership, because it seemed like you had emulated the very sound principles from both worlds. So, how would you describe your leadership style, being a Eurasian?
Well, it's quite simple. Across the world, what's happening very much is we are very focused on the masculine. The
Mm-hmm,
world is basically run in a more patriarchal
mm-hmm,
and to a certain extent misogynic
mm-hmm,
realm.
mm-hmm,
And that needs to be rebalanced with something in the middle.
mm-hmm,
And I think this is really important to note that if you purely look at the material world that we built, the neo-capitalistic world that we built, is
mm-hmm,
driven
mm-hmm,
by a very male energy that
uh-huh.
got there, kill, zero-sum game, I win, you lose, all that. Yeah, it's driven capitalism to where it is today, but it has left behind the nurturing, the caring, the compassion, and we need to find that rebalance. And that's why I do what I do. So
Thank you.
I help teach people something called heart-centered leadership. Now, heart-centered
Mm-hmm,
leadership doesn't mean that, you have to be namby-pamby and nicey-nicey and, let everybody walk over you. No, just like for those people who are parents, parents don't do that. Real parents are very firm. Just the
mm-hmm,
same way you run your organization,
mm-hmm.
you have boundaries. That doesn't mean that
Boundaries, yes.
Yes, exactly. But it doesn't mean that you have to yell at your children. Doesn't
You're
mean that you have to
right.
yell at your
Mm,
employees.
mm,
Doesn't mean that you have to run an organization through fear.
mm.
Yeah.
You're right, but
And
you
this
have
is
to be
where
strategic as well.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so when you apply this, you realize that it is more sustainable in the long term,
Right.
because otherwise, a lot of organizations, especially tech organizations, run on this model where I don't care about you. As long
Mm,
as I pay you, three times the
mm,
salary of the average
mm.
person like you, I
Mm-hmm.
will extract the best out of you.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have no use to me, I discard you.
Mm-hmm.
There is no sustainability in that
Mm-hmm.
simply because you're just using somebody for their brains and nothing else. So
Mm-hmm.
you don't create an environment where people actually sit there and say, I want to build this company together with this organization. I have a vested interest because the company cares for me. I give that wonderful example of is this company which is called Patagonia. Patagonia
Mm-hmm.
essentially is a brand of outdoor gear,
Mm-hmm.
and they're very clear about how they stand.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many different brands of outdoor gear, but Patagonia said very clearly, all our products are going to be made sustainably. So they
Mm-hmm.
derive every single raw material
Mm-hmm.
from indigenous people across the world, mainly South America,
Mm-hmm.
and they deal directly with the indigenous people to get,
Mm-hmm.
the wool, whatever, which are sustainably sourced.
Mm-hmm.
And once they get it, they make them into, wonderful outfits, which they sell. And their products are sold in such a way that if anything goes wrong with the product, you
Mm-hmm.
can actually bring it back,
Mm-hmm.
either have it exchanged or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
your product is meant to last the life of the product.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of people are very excited about this brand simply because they really reflect everything that we talk about ESG. They
Mm-hmm.
live and breathe ESG.
Mm-hmm.
And the day they receive a tax rebate from the US government of
Mm-hmm.
10 million
Mm-hmm.
tax rebate, do you know what the CEO did with that 10 million? She could quite easily give it to the shareholders herself, the staff, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She
Mm-hmm.
gave it directly back to the different NGOs that
Mm-hmm.
help manage the people who supply, the indigenous people who supply the raw
Mm-hmm.
materials to make sure that their lives will
Mm-hmm.
remain intact and they will better their lives.
Very good.
Now, do you think that, people will buy less because she did that? Do you think the shareholders will leave the company?
Mm-hmm.
No. It's that
Mm-hmm.
this person has the exact virtue that people are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the I win, you lose
Mm-hmm.
materialistic,
Mm-hmm.
very almost narcissistic way of running companies, which we
Mm-hmm.
see a lot of
Mm-hmm.
on Wall Street.
Well, not only about running companies, but we can see this, what do you call the narcissistic kind of leading or managing an organization. That's why, during our previous conversations, I was telling you that our mission as leadership trainers is actually to change the mind of our government, political, business leaders, and all the leaders because they are still living in that tyrannical era. And I call it like that tyrannical leadership, and you call it the narcissistic leadership. I think they're just one and the same thing. They're just one animal, so to speak. Uh, I am I am quite I am quite well before I realized that I can do something. I was into this disillusionment as to how we can change the world. I was quite disillusioned, really, Danny, because Terry, because everywhere you go, everywhere you go, it seemed to me like our, national leaders, everywhere you go, are still living in the tyrannical era while leading people in the 21st century. And there has been a paradigm shift already in terms of leadership. But unfortunately, our leaders are still living in the tyrannical era while leading people who are already thinking of the transformational era. So how can we bridge the gap now? Because I think this is what we are facing. We cannot bridge a gap. The young people are disillusioned. They want a change in leadership, but they couldn't change a leadership because the leaderships would like to cling to their positions for 50, 30, 90 years until they die. And then and then they don't want to leave a legacy. They don't want to train successors because they want to aggrandize everything to themselves. So how do we solve this situation we are in right now? Quite a well, I'm not very pessimistic about it. We know that we can do something about it, but what do you think is our strategy? We are
Well,
both into
my
this
strategy is very,
industry. We're both into this industry.
yes.
So how do you think do we remove them? Do we
Yeah.
change
So
their
my
minds?
no, you can't do that overnight. But what you can do is you can empower leaders of tomorrow, and that's exactly why I do what I do. So the two
Mm,
strategies I've deployed, and I've been doing this for years, we focus on the youth, very young people, mainly at
mm,
university level, and
mm,
we begin to start telling them the
mm,
various leadership qualities and the leadership
mm,
traits so
mm,
that they
mm,
can recognize an autocratic leader or potential autocratic leader, and they will be in a position of denying somebody who's autocratic to become an autocratic leader, and
That's
also
very
be
good.
reflective and introspective so that they
Mm.
don't become one of those as well. So
Oh, that's
we have
good.
got very good um, role models because the younger people today believe in collaboration rather than capitalism. Because
Right,
capitalism is
right.
about me,
Mm,
you know. Greed
mm,
is good, as the movie Wall Street talked
mm.
about. Whereas in the collaborative economy, it's about how do we share the pie.
Yes,
There is no reason why you can't make money and still ensure that the planet and the people are taken care of. You can.
you're
It's a
right.
mindset. You know,
Mm,
and so that's focusing on the youth. and I do talks and workshops with leaders, as in corporate leaders, and sometimes political leaders, and I talk about how in the world there are prime examples of organizations that do both, which means you can still make
That do
profit
what?
based on you can still make profit whereby your organization still delivers positive uh, feedback and positive benefits directly to the planet and
Mm-hmm.
to the people. It's a ridiculous mindset that, whenever I talk about ESG or ESG driven companies or
Mm-hmm.
ESG philosophy
Mm-hmm.
companies,
Mm-hmm.
where companies believe in sustainability, and
Mm-hmm.
usually my talks or workshops are designed for CEOs and CFOs
Oh,
because these two
wow.
people control the money.
Wait, oh, hold on.
And in these,
I'll hold you there. Where is
yes,
your office? Where is your office? Is it's in Malaysia or in
in
London?
in in Malaysia, in Malaysia, I'm hoping to set up something in the UK as well.
Ah, okay, okay.
So
Mm,
what
mm,
we yeah, so what we do is
mm,
we show them real life examples of companies that actually practice ESG
mm,
to the max, which means they don't do this because of compliance, because most
mm,
companies do this because, the stock exchange or the
mm,
SEC, or in Malaysia, the Kuala Lumpur Stock Exchange insists
mm,
as part of the compliance, being a listed company, that you
mm,
must put X amount of money to ESG. Now, when
mm,
you do it because you're being forced to, it's
mm,
different from you believing in it and doing it when you really believe in it.
mm.
And when I do the talks, you will see a lot of people in the audience sort of shuffling, looking very uncomfortable. And somebody will raise his hand
Yeah,
or her hand and say,
yeah.
Terry, all these ES, all this ESG business, it makes people feel good, makes your shareholders feel good, but
Mm,
it doesn't make money. Because if I'm running a factory and I have to put in a scrubbing system to make sure that we're not emitting any toxic gases, then it's a huge amount of costs, and then it dwindles our margin, so we make less money. So ESG really, is a waste of time and a waste of money because we can't make profits.
mm,
And I smile and look at them. I said, I'm so glad you asked that question, because I think, you have the right to your own opinion. But I'm just going to show you 4 examples of companies across the world out
mm,
of thousands who are fully embedded in ESG. They
mm,
believe, they
mm,
live and breathe ESG.
mm,
And so if you're saying that companies that adopt ESG as a philosophy and obviously a practice, that these companies cannot make money, then I want you to now tell me why these 4 examples, I'm just giving 4 examples out of
mm,
thousands,
mm, mm,
you tell me what the valuation of these companies are. Because you
mm,
said companies that believe in ESG cannot make money, right? And
mm,
then they start getting nervous. And I said, please, you said all these companies
mm,
cannot make money.
mm,
So tell
mm,
me what you think the valuation of these companies are. And then I reveal one by one. Each company minimum is $1 billion,
mm.
US
Wow.
dollars. One
Mm,
company was sold at $13.7 billion. And they're fully
mm,
ESG. Everything they do is ESG driven.
mm,
So I said,
mm,
you said you can't make money because you adopt ESG. But these
mm,
companies have done it. They've proven it not just out of a nice feeling, it's in dollars and cents. So the problem here is your mindset, not that it can't be done. If you think
mm,
it can be done, of course it can be done. But
mm,
they think and they believed in it and they've done it. And they have the numbers to
mm,
prove it.
mhm, mhm,
So that's how powerful it is. So we repeat the same thing with the young people. So that
mhm.
by the time, and of course, when I leave my workshop with the adults, with the CEOs and CFOs,
Excuse me,
I said, look,
excuse
yes,
me, Terry.
yeah.
We can only see from here. Would you please
Oh,
adjust
really?
your camera?
You
That
lower? I see.
that's it.
Sorry.
Yes.
You could have told me earlier. That's
All
funny.
right.
Weird
Mm,
though, because I can see my whole frame. Your
mm,
camera can't. It's weird. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
mm,
So what I leave the talk with, this is to the CEOs and CFOs. I say, look, you run your own companies. I have no right to tell you what to do. But
yes.
here's the thing. So
Mm,
here's the thing. I said, at the same time, because I run a humanity.org, we have reached out to 100,000 young people. And our
mm,
dream is to
mm,
reach 1 billion young people with the
mm,
same message. So these young people are eventually going into the workforce. These same young people are
mhm,
also going to be consumers of tomorrow.
mhm,
So do you think that they will support a company that is not ESG driven or ESG driven?
mm,
You
mhm,
decide. What do you think?
mhm.
Do you think that they will want to be employed by a company that doesn't believe in ESG? Or
No,
do you think that they would even believe a company that claims they're ESG driven but really are not? Remember, young people are not stupid. They have the
of
ability
course.
with technology to audit your company and figure out whether you're doing
Right.
this because you just want to make more money or
Mm,
you're doing this because you really believe in it.
mm.
And so I leave you with that thought.
Oh,
And the
good.
decision is yours online. And I walk away and you can see the faces changing. And then
Great. Great.
after my lecture, they come up to me and say, Terry, how do we collaborate? How do we work together? And I said, yeah, I can point you in the right directions. But
Yeah,
and
very
I said,
happy
I'm
to,
not,
very
yeah.
happy you're
And
affecting
the
the
thing is,
world. Yeah.
exactly. And I'm saying to them, look, everybody thinks that adopting ESG is obviously going to be a very expensive exercise. But I'm saying that nobody's asking you to do this overnight. All these companies I talked about did it over years. And everything starts with baby steps. But if you don't even take the first baby step, you ain't
Mm-hmm.
getting anywhere. So that's what I leave with them. And so now you
Great.
see the
Yes.
two-prong
Mm-hmm.
strategy that I use. I reach
Mm-hmm.
out to young people who become
Mm-hmm.
leaders of tomorrow, and I
Mm-hmm.
reach out to corporations to already
Yeah,
prime them
to
to
the,
understand that
mm,
you need to make a change now,
right.
and do
Yeah.
baby steps. So by the time these young people become your potential leaders within your organizations,
Mm-hmm.
or the consumers that buy your product,
Mm-hmm.
that you're ready.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm happy that you are able to reach out to both worlds, to the young, because you're young at heart, vibrant, and at the same time, you've got all these experiences that would qualify you to mentor, people of, the tyrannical era. All right. Going, yeah, I'm so happy too that you're able to train the youth. You know what? I don't know if you've experienced this, but in my years of training people, I enjoy being with the young people much better because they've got more dynamic, they're more visionaries, and they're pure. Their values are intact. And this transformational kind of thing is just very much embraced by this age group. Well, the argument when you speak with the owners, the fifth, maybe the 60s and above, bracket, their
My age.
contention, okay, no, not, but you don't belong to that kind of mindset anyways. The contention is, yeah, a balance between heart and mind, meaning kindness and profitability. And that's why I don't know if you agree with me that leaders should not be managers as well. If they're leaders, they have to train, they have to delegate the management perspective to another person, because it's in the management that you would require order, you would require excellence, all these things that we need also for our company to be profitable. So I said, whereas leadership, we are more leading people from the heart with mind coherence, so I that's what I would advise them. Like you separate management from leadership, because these two are not really, though, yeah, what I mean is that leadership is really more in people, a management is really more in logistics, but logistics also deal with people, of course, because we deal with people in these areas. So that's just what my advice is to these executives. um I don't know if you agree. What is your thought about this?
Okay. Um, no, I don't quite agree. So here's where I come from. So whether you're a leader or a manager, if you look at it purely from a mechanical point of view, which means, okay, I need to do this task. This is how many man hours going to be done. I don't
Mm,
care whether, my staff sleep or don't sleep. They got to
mm,
get it done by this amount of time.
mm,
Um, that's one way to look at it. Or
mm,
the other way to look at it, right? So these guys really need to do this task by this amount of time, but
mm,
I will support them to ensure that I got their back.
mm,
Now, when you say that, that becomes totally different from the recipient, which means the staff, who
mm,
suddenly says, wow, and this is what I did when I was running my own companies. I had an integrated marketing company. I had staff of 40, and we would do everything below the line, which means it's like an advertising agency, except we did stuff that was non-physical advertising. That's we don't do billboards, we don't do advertising in newspapers. We did events and we did everything on the ground. So
mm,
a lot of times the work would be after 5 because
mm,
you need to do setups in shopping malls or setups in hotels, whatever. All those were a lot of work. I would, as I was the executive chairman, I would actually appear with my staff at midnight,
mm, mhm,
doing the setup. And
mm,
it was stunned, like, Terry, you're the executive chairman. What are you doing here? And I
mm,
said, because I got your back. If
mm.
it
Yeah,
means that we're going to stay here till 3 o'clock
right.
in the morning,
Yeah,
I will do that.
yeah,
And suddenly they were very excited. They were empowered
right. Yeah.
rather than, oh no, I'm doing all this and then Terry gets to drive around in chauffeur-driven
Yeah,
cars.
and then Terry
See
plays
the
golf,
difference?
and we are here. You know,
Yes, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Our boss
And
plays golf, and we are here doing the hard job.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
and so
Mm,
that's leadership by example. That's leadership
mm,
with hearts.
mm,
That's how you empower people. And until
mm,
today, I think I mentioned to you, one of my staff,
mm,
she, is now on her own accord,
mm,
started her own
mm,
company and all that. She's valued at $140 million.
mm.
And she came up to me and we had drinks the other night and she said, Terry, you know, I would love to do a project with you and, have the kind of fun that we did
Me
when
too, me
you were
too.
my
I'd like to
boss.
do project with you.
I laughed at her. I said, yeah, but
Especially, you know what, especially that we have this we have this same blend, Eurasia. We have this Eurasian blend, and yes, very interesting. I wish I can talk to you for a day. All right, let's move to the next topic now.
sure,
How
sure.
do you balance your heart and mind coherence? This is what you call how do you balance being decisive with involving your team in decision making? Because of course, I've noticed this, especially in Asia. Sometimes if you are too kind to these people, they also feel, well, not only in Asia, everywhere you go, when the leader is very kind, or you treat them like a family member, they also feel this. They also exude this um, mindset of entitlement. Like, okay, my boss is very kind. How do you delineate that? Being kind and decisive at the same time, being kind but um, having boundaries at the same time. It is quite an art to do that. Um, as my senior, I think you're my senior. Okay. So, but young at
I
heart.
think that's a compliment.
I mean, yeah, I'm willing to learn from you. I'm as my senior consultant, or senior in this training industry. Would you tell us how to balance, how to balance this thing? If you're so kind to them, sometimes they abuse. They don't know where to place themselves. They feel like maybe they're your children, or maybe they're and they feel entitled. They feel bad if you tell them this, if you tell them off. So how do you balance kindness and decisiveness?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Brilliant. And I always bring it, and this is very sad because less and less people are having children. And
Mm,
it's a fact,
mm,
So, obviously, whether married or not married, people are
mm,
having less
mm.
and less
Have
children. More
children.
people are opting not to have children. And I
Yeah.
don't blame them because the cost
Mm,
of, having
mm,
children
mm,
is
mm,
skyrocketing.
mm,
But I take a lot of values coming from being a son, but also being a father. And of course, I've got 4 kids and about to be a grandfather. And of course, I've got special needs and neurodivergent son as well.
mhm,
So in all these learnings of my own personal life, I
mm,
realized that you can apply the same rules. And just
Mm-hmm.
as you mentioned just now,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
when you run an organization,
Mm-hmm.
yes, you treat them with respect, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, you demand the same respect that they give to you. And make no bones about it, that they do not cross that line. Just like
Mm-hmm.
you can be a father, you can be a mother, your children do not cross that line.
Mm-hmm.
Boundaries have to be stated clearly. In
Mm-hmm.
Asia, unfortunately, when people start to be pally-pally with their staff, they
Mm-hmm.
lose their boundaries. So it's not the staff's fault. It's their
Yes,
fault, the
it's their
leader's
fault.
fault.
Mm-hmm.
It's their fault. And
Mm-hmm.
why? Because they think that being nice means, these people will suck up to them and do wonderful things that are.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
but with being a very visionary leader, when you set the boundaries, you also show them the goals that you want to achieve together. That
Mm-hmm.
we literally are like a family, but every
Mm-hmm.
family member has to pull its own weight,
You're right.
just like
Mm-hmm.
the family. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you don't expect your kids to not do chores
Yeah.
and expect the family to prosper and grow. You
Mm.
know, it's the kids doing chores allows the parents to
Yeah,
go out and
yeah,
work
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and bring the bacon in.
Mm-hmm.
But if that doesn't happen,
Mm-hmm.
if the house is a chaos, you
Mm-hmm.
ain't going to go so far.
Mm-hmm.
Same as any organization, even
Yes.
more so. But at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, you
Mm-hmm.
see, we tend to believe that being autocratic is better,
Mm-hmm.
meaning you just bark orders at them and you
Mm-hmm.
put the word of fear out. If you don't perform, this
Mm-hmm.
is going to happen to you. You do the opposite. People
Mm-hmm.
then live in fear. And when
Mm-hmm.
people live in fear, they're not at their optimum because their
Mm-hmm.
nervous system is going like this 24/7. They're
Mm-hmm.
walking in eggshells around you. Do you
Mm-hmm.
think that they have a clear mind? No.
Mm-hmm.
And neuroscience tells you that somebody who is walking around on eggshells is
Mm-hmm.
living in anxiety. If
You're
they're living in
right. Yeah.
anxiety, it
Mm-hmm.
means they have brain fog. They're
Mm-hmm.
not performing at optimum speed, optimum
Mm-hmm.
performance. Is that what
Yeah.
you want? If
Mm-hmm.
that's what you want, fine. Rule with fear then.
Mm-hmm.
You see
Actually,
the
I
difference?
think the main cause of all these problems within an organization is wrong hiring. Wrong hiring.
Absolutely.
I
I
think, yeah,
absolutely agree.
because how come, even worst management styles or worst leadership styles work with some people. I've seen employees who've been with the worst organizations for 25 years because I think, they they're just there, like to them they just jive with the vision of the company, and that's it. But other people feel disillusioned working in that kind of environment. But you see a few.
Absolutely.
So I think it boils down to wrong hiring,
Well,
some of these
it
problems.
so the wrong hiring also is attributed to what the leadership strategy is, because you
True.
can't blame the HR
Mm,
person. It
mm,
is based on whatever philosophy the
mm-hmm,
owner or the
mm-hmm,
founder is.
mm-hmm,
I'll give you an example. One of the companies that I was brought in to do some advice on. I
mm,
couldn't believe that every Monday morning,
mm,
it's a global company, and the CEO and founder would get on to this work in progress meeting every Monday morning at 10 o'clock. His first words were nothing but 15 minutes of profanities,
mm-hmm,
saying that you guys are no good,
mm-hmm.
you're useless. I don't know
Ah,
why
no,
I
no,
even
no,
hired you, and
no,
da
no.
da 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 da. And then he ends off with saying, why are you not contributing to the meeting? Nobody's saying anything. Of course,
Mm,
nobody's saying anything. They're shit scared of you.
mm, mm,
So, what kind of organization have you created?
mm.
It's run with fear, by
Yeah,
fear.
yeah, by
Nobody
fear.
wants to open their mouth because they're going to get their head chewed off.
That's tyrannical.
So, and
Yeah, that's
yes,
tyrannical.
and he's wondering why the company's not progressing. Duh, haven't you looked in the
Yeah,
mirror
yeah, yeah,
lately?
yeah. Well,
And
yeah,
that's sad. I've seen this
actually,
happen so
yeah,
many times.
yeah. Well, we cannot really change the leaders. We do have our own personalities. So I just like what Steve Jobs did, because he was not really a people's person. So he asked his best friend to do the leadership, and he just did.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's just what we need to do in some of our organizations, because we cannot change, or we cannot
Yep.
teach old dogs new tricks. So,
Yeah.
but then it
Hey,
also takes humility to accept
yeah,
your own reality. If they will listen, then fine, but I would
yeah,
like to cite the example of Steve Jobs. He wasn't a people's person, so he appointed someone like his best friend to lead the company, the personnel department of the company, and they both succeeded. After all, we cannot do things on our own. We need each other. No man is an island. All right.
absolutely.
You know what? I wish we can interview you for the whole day, you know, but we only have 2 minutes more to go. In fact, I
Sure.
gave you a list of questions which we were not able to talk about because what you were saying was interesting. So this is this ping pong of ideas. And I think this is the most interesting interview, if not, well, others are also also interesting, but maybe because this duration kind of blend in us are we're able to gel up during our interview and even during our previous conversation. How I wish I can interview you again in this channel so that you answer more of the questions like being balanced, common leadership challenges, because there are a lot of like budding leadership trainers there who might, or I'm sure who would like to learn from a TEDx speaker like you, a humanity evangelist. Oh, that's my first time to hear about that. I'm very interesting viewpoint, So, why we have 1 minute. I'll just give the floor to you. Yes, please.
Yeah, well, it's simple. When you try and make a decision, there are two ways to do it. One way is, can this make a lot of money? Yes, that's a very important decision. But the next decision making thought that comes through it, if you were God,
Mm.
how would you decide?
Oh, I
If you
like
were,
that.
yeah. So if
Wise.
you were
That's
love,
wise.
so
If you were
you, for those
God.
people who, yeah. So
Mm,
if you're not religious, you switch the
mm,
word instead
mm,
of God. If you were coming from love, how would
mm.
you decide?
Wow, I
And
like
I'm
that.
not, I'm
Mm,
so I'm not suggesting that you don't do this for profit. Obviously, you do.
mm,
That's what organizations are. You
mm,
cannot thrive without margins or profit. But at the same time, if you don't overlay this with this consciousness of saying, if you were God, how would you do this? If you were love, how would you do
mm.
this? And it changes everything. Absolutely changes everything.
Uh,
So I
you
leave you
know,
with that.
you remind me of social entrepreneurship, earning money while changing society. All right. Thank you so much. I cannot thank you enough. Oh, this is such a blessed day and a blessed interview in this sunny hilltop of Scotland. What a blessed day. It's almost 10:30 here. What time is it in Malaysia?
It's exactly 5:01.
All right. If people would like to book you for TEDx speaking or something like that, please give me your YouTube channel, anything that
Yes,
you have,
certainly,
so that I can put
certainly.
it down below. And yes, we are here together. We are colleagues in this industry, but I advertise him because I know that
Thank you.
listening to him will trigger hope and change to the world. And that's precisely what our mission is in this industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Terima kasih. How do you say that? This is Indonesian. I've been to Indonesia and they say terima
It's
kasih for
exactly the
thank
same.
you.
It
You
is
say
exactly
the same?
the same.
Oh, terima
It's the
kasih,
same.
which is thank you. Bye for now.
Yes. And we say sama sama.